Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar on ESG trends and skill sets. My name is Waleed, and I will be presenting this webinar to you. And I have a guest with me on this webinar as well, which I will introduce to you shortly. Thank you very much for your time today. I know it's Ramadan time, some people are fasting, so we will not keep it very long. The expected time on this webinar is a maximum of 30 minutes. We may finish early as well. The agenda is that I will start with some introductions. I'll introduce to you Kaplan. I'll talk about myself. Then I will introduce our guest for this webinar. And then there will be a small Q&A with the guest. I'll ask them some questions and just learn from their insights into the topic. And then after that discussion, I would also like you to ask any questions to us about the topic that we are discussing. Ideally, this should take about 15 to 20 minutes. And then in the last 10 minutes, I'm going to talk about the CFA Institute's certificate in ESG and how Kaplan can help you with your learning or upskilling with that certificate. So we'll keep it towards the end. And at this point, let's make a move. And I would like to just introduce to you Kaplan. Some of you may already be aware of what we do. So we are basically a training provider based around the world. We have set up in the Middle East over the last few years, and there's a lot of popularity that we've gained in the Middle East over the last few years, especially in the UAE. Now, Kaplan has been training for more than 80 years worldwide. We have centers around the world in the UK, the US, Singapore, Australia, etc. And I take great pride in mentioning that we have trained millions of delegates around the world, and especially now in this region, the number keeps increasing because the clients and the students and the corporates are trusting us with the task of upskilling their workforce. And because we are now in this region, especially in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, so we're very close to the student hub, and always welcome students to visit us as well at our premises. And if there is any more insights you need about our programs, I'll give you some details after this as well, that where you can come for which programs. So please feel free to reach out to us for anything you may need. And I'll move into some introduction about myself. So my name is Waleed. By designation, I am the Director of Learning Advanced Designations at Kaplan Professional Middle East. I started my journey into education industry here in the UAE about 10 plus years ago. Since then, I have been training with various corporates, and I joined Kaplan Professional 2 years ago in my role as the Director of Learning. I've been involved in the region for a long time, working with corporates in helping them achieve their objectives and potentials. I'm very happy to speak to the students one-on-one as well. So after this webinar, if you have anything to chat about your career, about your aspirations, just a general chat about what's happening in the region, I am very available and would love to do that as well after the webinar today. Please feel free to ask any questions during the webinar as well if you would like to ask any questions, or we can keep it towards the end as well. Moving on, I would just like to introduce our guest, and it's a great honor and privilege to have Clarice with us, who has joined us kindly for this webinar. And I would leave the introduction to her to kindly introduce herself and tell us what she's been doing and what is she doing these days.
Thank you very, very much, Walid. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. Let me just say my video, I think, is blocked. I'm more than happy to make this a little more personal and show myself. I think it needs to be unblocked by you, but perhaps I'll keep going as that is. Let me see if that works now.
Yeah, works now.
Excellent. I think it does. Perfect. All right. So here I am. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and thank you very much for joining us today. So look, my background is not in ESG and sustainable finance. Obviously, these topics are increasingly available in universities across the globe, but still not really a significant part of most curriculum. So similar to myself, I come from a background of economics. I had colleagues in ESG departments that came from engineering, political science, literature, etc. So it's basically just to say you can come from whatever undergraduate, masters, and there's a space for ESG given the breadth of topics that it covers. The reason why I joined the ESG community more than 10 years ago now was really the sense of purpose, was the sense that I was an internal auditor back then, having worked 5 years in the industry for companies such as Ford. And I kept waking up and saying, that there's something more that I want to do. I want to understand how I'm contributing to something bigger. So for me, that was my reason for jumping in. Perhaps you have others, but perhaps some of you also, that resonates with some of you. So my career, I started with Amundi and Natixis, two of the largest asset managers in Europe. You might be familiar with them. Then I worked for UK government pension funds. And then I, quote unquote, finished my corporate life. Today I have my own consultancy at a smart beta investor called OCM, really constructing portfolios that were incredibly innovative, such as using AI and all that fun stuff. And I think I just wanted to mention those names because each of them had such a different approach to ESG, but also they require different skill sets. Amundi, for example, was particularly quant. With economics, I do have a strong background in math, and I enjoyed that. In Natixis, it was a lot more research-based. I didn't need that, Excel and stats and all of that. In the pension fund, it was a lot more coordination across teams. And then in OCM, I was really developing funds and answering RFPs together with the marketing team. So just to say as well, it's quite broad in terms of the skill sets that are valued, but also that you can contribute to when considering working in ESG. And what I've seen in the industry, it's really that when I started, it was an absolute fringe role. I remember that in my first years in ESG, I had to take the CFA, the classic certification, the ESG investment didn't exist back then, to really just to be heard by the portfolio managers, right? It wasn't enough to be a specialist in ESG. I had to prove myself in other ways, in the classic financial way. And the situation now has completely changed, right? Now I'm seeing senior portfolio managers lining up to take the ESG investing. And it's not just because I'm the academic advisor of it, just kidding, but it's really something that has become absolutely imperative. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. So where can ESG take you? Look, and I'll tell you a little bit about what I do today for you to have a sense of, again, the breadth that this can take. So for example, I sit at the Standard & Poor's Global Scientific Council for Sustainable Finance. So basically a consultancy or advisory role for one of the most important rating agencies in the world. I'm academic advisor for the CFA, as I mentioned. So I'm not a professor myself, but obviously there's a huge space for those interested in academia around topics of ESG. One of the roles as well that I have is to help the UK government support emerging markets, developing their green bond frameworks. Kind of, if you're interested in the international development, there's quite a lot to be done there as well. And at the University of Cambridge, I worked for their Center for Sustainable Finance. I actually organized high-level meetings with the then Prince Charles, today King Charles, and CEOs of large asset managers on commitments for sustainable investing. So perhaps even more than other careers, this one, could really take you wherever you want. You never really know what doors it's going to open because it's evolving so fast. So enough about me. Let me tell you a little bit about ESG. And I'll start with sharing something that a very senior professional once told me that completely blew my mind in terms of really understanding the essence of ESG. So I thought I'd share this with you as well, because perhaps it changes the view, the understanding that you have of ESG. What he said is, our economy has always revolved around what is rare. And before, money was rare, and it's not rare anymore. Now, environmental resources are rare, and that's why our economy will increasingly revolve around it. And that for me was just, you know, and 50 years ago, you didn't really care about the price of water. With rare exceptions, it was vastly available. But these days, in the United States, developed markets, you have the Colorado River, which is one of the most important basins in the US, water basins in the country. It's drying up to the point that the federal government is threatening to impose a 25% usage reduction because of the need to really maintain water for the population. And obviously they're prioritizing the use of the remaining water by municipalities above private agricultural companies. So if you are thinking of working for a bank that might be lending to one of these companies, or an investor that's providing equity or even a loan, well, you're probably calculating how the production yields might be affected by effectively what is significant drought in your production, right? That impacts your revenue. You are probably calculating the cost of raw material. Increasing cost of water will affect that's cost, right? So just there, you touched upon two of the financial indicators that are really key to nearly every single financial model. And because we are changing in our environment, because we're using more resources, we are increasing the pollution, increasing emissions, etc. Governments are needing to regulate. So across the world, we've actually seen a 20-fold increase in climate-related regulation in the past 20 years. And one of these regulations is limiting the emissions by vehicles, not just carbon, but NOx, but that's besides the point. And you might not be aware of Dieselgate, but it's actually one of the most important events in the automotive industry, probably after Elon Twits. So there was investigation that started actually in the US around Volkswagen, right? And we're probably familiar with them. It's one of the largest, richest, and most respected automotives in the world. And it was identified that they were actually cheating on their emissions tests, right? When a vehicle is about to get ready for sale, they have to go through a little machine that does things to them that basically simulates them in the road and test that the emissions are within the regulatory requirements. And Volkswagen, it was proven that Volkswagen had actually changed the computer in the vehicles for it to be able to identify that it was undergoing a test. And basically it reduced the amount of NOx during this test. And in the real situation, the emission was actually 40 times as high. So you can imagine the pollution that you were getting if you lived in these cities where it was being sold. So in 2017, the US federal government ordered Volkswagen to pay $2.8 billion in criminal fines. The CEO was charged with fraud and conspiracy, and the company had to recall 11 million vehicles because it was cheating on regulation. Obviously, sales dropped 25% in the US. Equity was absolutely crashed, and you were not a happy trooper if you were overweight with Volkswagen in those days. And that's all because one of the largest companies in that sector was unable to meet a simple regulatory requirements around climate. Why am I telling you these anecdotes that are, both of them are real? It's because ESG can do a lot of good, right? It is about being ethical. It is about understanding the absolutely critical role that finance have to steer us to a sustainable future. That's the reason why I started doing this. But it also lies in the absolute core of investing, right? It's about understanding financial risks and financial opportunities, and not of the past, but of the future, because that's what prices should really reflect. So I think my time has run up. So while I turn back to you
very
to see if there are any questions.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Clarice. Just touch on a couple of points before we go into the Q&A. You did mention regulation. And you did mention on the measurements as well. So, I mean, how are the businesses these days ensuring that they are compliant? And the critical part of that regulation is that you have to be true to the measurement of whatever KPIs that you've said. So, I mean, in the region, if I'm more focused on this region, I mean, are organizations or corporates looking for candidates or professionals who know their insights into regulations and also measurement? Is there a link here, or do you think that is an area where people need to focus more on in their upskilling?
Excellent question. Thank you. So what we're seeing is both within corporates, but also in financial institutions, we're increasingly seeing the skill set that comes from various different areas, right? For example, when I was an ESG analyst, we had a chemist in the department because he really understood the characteristics that would enable a chemical company to be successful, right? And that was some things about regulation. It was about managing pollution, which is absolutely critical to chemical institutions, etc. But you don't have to be a chemist, right? I was an economist and I covered financial institutions and industrials. But it's just to say that that awareness of what is coming, and that's why I mentioned about the future, right? It's following what are the governments talking about in terms of international regulation that's coming up. For example, as we're seeing climate agreements, the COP obviously this year, very much in the region. What is coming up? How are national regulations trickling down to sector regulations, right? So that's certainly a lot of research involved, but also a lot of thinking outside of the box. And I think this is what is particularly interesting about this generation that's coming into ESG, is because the previous generation had a very kind of inward view of what impacts a company, right? It's kind of the market, the suppliers, etc. It's kind of very traditional. And I think that this new generation with, it's access to social media, it's access to, just kind of having a better grasp of just what are the shifts out there. One of the things, for example, that a lot of investors are now starting to use is big data that monitors social media to see whether there's a reputational risk for one of these companies and the stock could drop, right? So really innovative approaches to how much should I value this company?
Yeah, very valid. I mean, thank you a lot for, for these insights, and I'm sure we can go on forever on this topic because there is so much to it. In the interest of time at this point, I would just like to take some questions. I know you've got a flight to catch as well. So anyone would like to ask us any questions, any quick questions, please send your questions in the chat box. We would like to just take a couple of questions, maybe.
Please, here to answer questions. And there's absolutely nothing as a silly question, but if for whatever reason you think yours is a silly question, don't hesitate to message me privately, and I'll be sure to keep your name anonymous.
Absolutely, and you can connect with Clarice as well. I'm sure you're on LinkedIn as well, Clarice. I mean, they can do a bit of a search.
Yes.
You can send us any questions as well to us. We can pass it on to Clarice to answer. While maybe they're asking questions or we're just waiting. So, what would be top 2 to 3 skill sets? I mean, what do you think that the candidates or students who are, let's say, doing their CFA qualification or doing ACCA qualification, is there any kind of skill sets that you think are really, really important these days? They should ensure that they get a good grasp on.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not really a skill set, but it's almost more of a discipline, I would say. Read your news. Have your routine of reading the FT or reading, your local newspaper, etc. Just be on the news, not just because that's what supports you understanding the trends that might impact the sector that you're covering or, a stock that you have in your portfolio, but also there's this interdisciplinary approach to ESG that is so powerful, right? It's really understanding how climate regulation can impact finance, or, a new pipeline that is going through an indigenous area can be impacted because there's a revolt and the government has to stop the development, etc. So it's kind of this connection of the dots that I think can be quite powerful as well. So that would be one thing. The other thing is, one of the things that we're seeing in the industry is people that take a brief certification and put themselves out as experts. Don't be tempted by that. I think it's there's nothing more precious than your reputation. So be sure that you're really doing your studying, you're really understanding things in depth before putting yourself out there. And it does require a bit of humbleness, but I think it's being conservative in an industry that's developing so quickly and there's so many unknowns, can only be a good thing. Is there a third one? Oh, I have a question here. I won't, we can, is it all right if I read it out?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you can. Yeah.
Fantastic. So how CPA professionals can upskill to get into the ESG community? Excellent. Well, look, obviously I have conflict of interest in suggesting that you take the ESG investing certification. I was the academic advisor of it, and I am responsible for writing 2 of its chapters as well. In all honesty, I do think that if you want to be a financial analyst that is aware, or obviously accounting as well, but kind of that financial background that is ESG related, it is probably the strongest certification out there. And as I said, well, I think there's probably a topic that you want to get good in, right? Because there's environmental, there's climate, even more specifically, there's social, there's governance, etc. So I do think that it's quite helpful to kind of specialize yourself in an area. One of the things that I would suggest is know your climate a little bit. I think it's quite challenging today to say that you are a serious ESG analyst or professional if you don't know your climate science. And it's not, reading the IPCC report from back to front. I've never done that myself, but read the summaries. Be sure that you know what's happening in that space.
Yeah, okay, that's very useful. Thank you very much, Clarice, for that. So Dipesh, maybe if you want to just wait, I'll talk about the certificate as well if it helps. But I think the key message here is that choose an area which is your specialty going forward. I mean, a small certificate will help to upskill yourself, but again, take a route of whether you want to be a specialist in economics or governance or social, or as Clarice said, I mean, climate is really important as well. I mean, we need to look into that area in a great depth as well. Yeah, great. I don't see any more questions, Clarice, at this point. If any questions do come to me, I can easily pass them on to you. And I'm sure people can reach out to you.
Absolutely, would be a pleasure.
Thank you so much. I mean, it's been a great honor to have you here, and we look forward to seeing you on some other webinars as well. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, and I wish everyone a good luck in their ESG journeys. Thank you very much. Goodbye for today.
Thank you. Bye. So that was really useful. We will just quickly cover up on the CFA certificate in ESG investing as well. I won't take a lot of your time, maybe 5 to 10 maximum minutes. If you've got any questions, please feel free to ask. So in 2022, CFA Institute began offering the certificate in ESG investing, which basically anyone can enroll into. You don't have to be a CFA qualified to do that. So it's basically anyone can enroll into the certificate. And I have, it takes me a great honor and privilege to say that Kaplan Schweizer has produced a product which can help you with your learning as well, where you can practice some past exam questions, where you can learn the syllabus as well with the help of some videos that are available on the portal. And I'll tell you more about it. And as I already said, I mean, anyone who wants to get into the certificate, they can do it. If you are working in finance, it connects well. If you're not working in finance, I mean, it's a good kind of a certificate to get the knowledge on and get it onto your professional CV as well. Here is the product that Kaplan Schweizer is currently offering, and we do offer this product here in the UAE. Now the product has got 20 to 40 hours of on-demand videos from the expert instructors on the topics of ESG. There's a Q bank which has got about 400 questions on it for you to practice exam-like questions. There's a guide as well to help you start your journey and to guide you in the right direction of what topics and areas you should be studying. There's an activity feed to guide you. You're learning from start to finish. There are 2 mock exams, 100 questions mock exams, and then you get access to a Kaplan Schweizer community, which is basically all people who are enrolled into this certificate. You get to speak to them. You can connect with them and basically learn more from other people who are doing the same thing. There is also an instructor link within the product, which means that you can go and ask questions to our experts through the forum, through the portal. And there is also Schweizer's pass protection, which means that if, let's say, you don't pass in the first attempt, and as long as you've done enough question practice, which is 50% of those 400 questions, as long as you've attempted them, you get the product extension for another year, which is great. The pass rates are great on this certificate. I mean, more recent pass rates globally we see is 81%, which means there is a high probability that you will pass. And with all the support that you're getting from Kaplan, I don't see any reasons why you won't make it and you won't pass it. Obviously, the exam registration is separate. That's what you will do on your own. But this is what we are offering as part of our solution for you to learn and then go on and pass this certificate. I would just touch on the price as well. So the price of this product is nominal $399 only. I've got my team links, which I'll share with you, who can guide you further if you would like to enroll onto this product. Questions? Any questions from your end on anything that we've covered today? Please mention in the chat box. If you don't have questions and you would like to reach to someone at Kaplan, please feel free to get in touch with Dima, whose contact details are on the slide. I have Moni on the webinar as well. She's also part of the program advisors team, and we can take any questions from you if you want to know anything about the certificate in ESG investing. A question has come in. Would we have an in-person session? Would there be an opportunity to meet other people taking this course? Good question. Thank you for that. So we have just very recently launched this course. You do get the access to the Kaplan Schweizer community, but that's obviously virtual. If there is an uptake in this course, and let's say we have people enrolling into this course over a particular month, I'm very happy to have a few sessions maybe where we just get together and see what's happening with the progress, maybe brainstorm a few ideas, or maybe just take a topic, because we have a team of qualified trainers at Kaplan, and they could just deliver a topic in class as well. But it all depends on if we get a more number of candidates to be available for it. I mean, it won't be possible to just do it for 1 or 2. So we'll see the progress. We are launching this now, and April is the month to look at. The program advisors team would also keep you updated. But yes, definitely, we can do something on this one. Any other questions you would like to ask on today's webinar, or the certificate itself, or the Schweizer product that we're offering on certificate of ESG investing? Please feel free to ask any questions. What roles is the certification usually applicable for? Well, if you are a finance professional, that's the greatest link, or the best link that this certificate brings to you, because then it lets you add another a different lens to your portfolio, basically, that you can then also look at ESG perspective. If you are not a finance person and you're not working in finance, I think it's a good thing to know about it. But obviously, as a career, this links more with the people who are currently working in the finance sector. But no harm. I mean, I was speaking to some people in the US, and they were saying that a lot of interest is there in the product for those people who are not into finance as well, because they just want to know what is ESG is all about. They're just interested in knowing more about the different topics that they will cover as part of this certificate. We can also share with you a list of the we can also share with you the list of the topics available. So if you just drop a line maybe to Dima after this webinar, I mean, we can send to you the syllabus areas and the learning objectives as well. And then perhaps you can create a link that, okay, fine, these are the areas which are more suitable for me to know. Kuldeep has a question. I'm working as financial accountant. Is it beneficial for me? Kuldeep, I would say it's beneficial to everyone, to be honest. And I'll tell you the significance in the UAE. I mean, as you may already know, that UAE is this is the year of sustainability in the UAE, and UAE is very proudly hosting COP28 as well. Oh, sorry, my Apple Watch is also hosting COP28 somewhere in November, December. So yes, there is definitely there's a trend to basically upskill yourself in this area. And I've seen, being in this market, I've seen the trend where there's been a lot of awareness now as compared to the last couple of years. I saw 2022 as the year where there was a lot of awareness. 2023 is going to be much more driving towards the same sort of direction, where organizations are preferring candidates who are also upskilled in this area. So, I mean, there is no end to this discussion. And because this is a certificate which basically you can enroll even if you're not a CFA, and it has been designed on such a level where you can basically pass it with covering the topic areas and the syllabus outcomes, not necessarily having to be a CFA qualified. So it's a great one in that sense. I hope I've answered that question, Kuldeep. Any other questions? Kuldeep, it's an on-demand course. So it's an on-demand course, and you go at your own pace, basically. So as a suggested time, I would say that you can finish your prep in a couple of months if you go at a steady pace. There's about 20 to 40 hours worth of video content in the product, so that you can cover at your own pace. I'm just saying a couple of months. If I was doing this certificate, I would have taken about 2 months maybe to go at a slow pace and then do question practice and then sit for an exam. And the exam can be sat remotely as well, or at Prometric centers. Kuldeep, yes, the exam is online. It can be taken remotely. The exam can also be taken at centers. So, but it's a computer-based exam. Another question: what does the curriculum involve, and what is the self-training program like? Will we also get notes that we need to study? Is it videos only? Yes, there is content that you will get from the CFA Institute as well. And then there are these videos and the entire portal that has been designed to basically summarize that entire content. So the content or the syllabus areas that you get from CFA Institute, there's about 9 different topics or chapters, and there's about 70 plus learning outcomes. And what we do as part of this product is that we summarize it. We summarize it in a way that is more manageable for you. And also at the same time, there is mock exams and test questions. So what you do is you just don't only learn, you apply those in the practice questions as well. And that is the best way to learn, what I think. Yes, at the 20 is the lower number. I mean, there's 20 to 40 hours worth of video content. I wouldn't calculate precisely what the number is, but there is enough of the content available as well. You're welcome. Any more questions? Anyone would like to ask any questions? Moni, is there any trial version available or no for this product?
Thank you, Mr. Walid. I would need to check if we can get like a trial version available. Maybe when they sign up, they can have.
Yeah,
like,
I think it would be useful. I mean, if anyone would like to just have, and I'm sure we can find a way on that. I mean, just
yes.
Please Moni or Dima know about your interest, and we can
Yes,
find a
please.
way where you can maybe just try it as well, and just see how what you will get out of the product itself.
All right, sure. Thank you.
Any other questions you'd like to ask anyone? Last few seconds or before I close. If you have any questions, please send to Dima and I can take them as well. And if you would like to connect on LinkedIn, you can connect with me as well, or Clarice. And we would be very happy to help you with anything you'd like to ask. So I assume there are no questions at this point. So we'll bring this to a close. So thank you very much for joining us. And I hope this was good in terms of your understanding about the topic. And also useful in terms of knowing about the trends in the market and what skill sets you need to grow in your career. Thank you, and look forward to seeing you at some point.